So recently on FreightWaves, we've talked about why drones can maybe start delivering Starbucks, but they aren't quite there to deliver your packages yet. But we're sitting down with the co-founder and CEO of one company, Valkyrie, who's making it close to happening, getting that drone delivery one step closer to actually becoming a reality. We've got Ryan Walsh here today with us. How's it going, Ryan?
I'm doing great. Thanks. I appreciate you guys having me.
Yeah, thanks for joining me today. We're super excited to have you on the first episode of Modern Shipper. So, first things first, why the name Valkyrie? We got something here in Chattanooga that is kind of like Vikings, is what it's reminding me of. What was the thought process behind that? I'm really interested.
Yeah, we went through pages of names, and if it's a normal word, it was already taken. You weren't going to get a trademark or a domain name or a Twitter handle at all. So we were looking at how we could spell it, uniquely and have a brand that was our own and individual to us. And we really like the Norse mythology around the Valkyries, which is why you'll see a lot of Viking type stuff tied to that name once in a while. But it really fit what we were looking to do.
And that's awesome. Differentiation is the name of the game, especially in markets that are super saturated, like that gig economy. So tell me a little bit about the business that you guys do, the service that you guys provide, and kind of where you fit in the drone delivery space so far.
Sure. So we build universal infrastructure. So think locker systems that have drone acceptance and then landing pads, drone mailboxes for the individual home, as well as window and balcony mounted units coming out next year for urban customers. So we partner with all of the leading drone companies to provide that end piece infrastructure. So you can just place a package into one of our systems. It will get loaded into the drone and sent off to a receiving station and deposited there. You pick it up just like you would any other package from another locker service. So it's really removing the customer from having to deal with the drone.
So you guys aren't necessarily the tech behind the drone itself, more of the receptacle for where the package goes at that last point.
Exactly, exactly.
What made you guys get into that space instead of kind of that last inch space instead of the space in between?
Sure. So, drones aren't anything new. They've been tried through the military, a lot of last century. And so there wasn't going to be an area that was really something you could corner, something you could patent on the drones itself that wouldn't be an incremental change. So we were really looking bottom up instead of top down. All the other drone companies were starting with the drone, and the customer was almost an afterthought, right? We can get it from point A to point B, but they didn't really think through what would happen when it gets there. And so, with drones having spinning blades and all of those things that can cause safety risks, we realized that providing a universal receptacle was going to be the key to all of that coming together. So we saw the opportunity, and that's where we went after.
Right. So, like when Amazon released their news of, oh, we're going to start dropping off your Prime packages in 4 to 6 hours by drone delivery, my first thought was, are they going to drop it on my front porch? What if I have something breakable? What if, a porch pirate comes up and takes my package that was dropped right there? So, you guys kind of avoid all of those problems. But talk to me a little bit about the challenges that you guys do find in that last inch of drone delivery.
Sure, it's something that often gets overlooked. People just look at it as, oh, it's a box that takes something from drones. But in reality, the back end, the communication, the authentication between the drone and the landing station ends up being very critical, especially when you're looking at pharmaceutical deliveries or those types of pieces, right? Drones don't necessarily solve the issues that we're finding in last mile, as you mentioned, right? I don't want to have to be home to receive a package. I don't want it just left in a conspicuous area until I can receive it. So, how can we secure those packages, prove a full chain of custody, and make sure that there's all those problems associated with the last mile removed?
Makes sense. So, you guys recently did a deployment on a golf course of all places. Tell me a little bit about the decision to do that deployment there and what that looks like going forward as far as what you guys learned from that deployment.
Sure. Yeah, we partner with some great companies, Ag Eagle and Sun City Country Club, down in Scottsdale, Arizona. And under the current FAA regulations, everything really needs to be within line of sight. We hope that changes in the coming months and years. But currently, we were looking for what commercial opportunities are available under the regulations we have now. And so golf courses ended up being a great use case for that. And a lot of the traditional ways, having a cart person driving around and giving you beers or whatever it may be, it's the same problems, right? You're not tracking those products, you're not able to bring hot food out, you can't replace a golfer's balls or tees if something happens. And so we saw this, the golf course saw this, and our partner Ag Eagle, and we decided we're going to implement this. So we had a great demonstration down there last month, and we're going to be building that system to a commercial level over the coming 6 to 8 months. And then we're going to be opening that up for commercial release to all golf courses.
I'm not gonna lie, I am a terrible golfer. I've been on a golf course my whole entire life. My dad is a great golfer, and I am so awful. I would honestly be concerned about drilling a drone with one of my just askew golf shots. But that's pretty cool, especially with that hot food delivery. Sometimes all you get from a cart girl is a Gatorade and a pack of Skittles, and you're like, what if I want a burger on the 16th hole? Now you got it with the drone.
Yep. Now, I'm not a great golfer myself, but they're flying high enough to where it would be pretty hard for a golfer to nail it with a ball.
Amazing. Then that's not something that I have to worry about. So sometimes when the U.S. shipping, the U.S. logistics industry hears drones, drone delivery, that last inch, they might think, oh my gosh, that means that I'm losing out on my actual employees that are taking that package from the truck and delivering it on your doorstep. Talk to us about how the shipping industry has kind of received this idea of drone drop off.
That's a misconception that, we get quite often. Are drones going to replace trucks? And in reality, I don't see a future where that happens. The current last mile logistics, when you add in on demand meal delivery and medication delivery, we barely have the systems in place to develop that as it is. I mean, it's holiday season, whatever it may be, COVID hit, and the system that was already burdened became overburdened. So we see drones as ancillary to that and something we can add on top of that, whether it's, I always use the example of Uber Eats, right? It's crazy to have an entire vehicle and a person delivering one item from a restaurant to your house when that can be done by a drone. But a traditional UPS delivery route where you have multiple packages and they're all in a line one after another, the milk run, so to speak, that makes much more sense to do as a truck than it would as a drone. So they each have their own niches that really they work well within. So we see a hybrid system forming between trucks and drones that will really meet the market demands, but we don't ever see vehicle drivers or the people in that situation being replaced by drones.
So obviously drones do have their limitations, especially when it comes to delivery in bad weather and different conditions like that. Do you guys have any plans to kind of partner with those truck delivery services to say, hey, maybe somebody ordered something that we can't deliver right now, but do you have a partnership where you can funnel it in? That way it is delivered in a different manner?
Absolutely, we're speaking with a lot of 3PL companies for that specific purpose. We see this as a logistics play as much as a tech play. So we think through the customer needs and work through them as best we can, and partnering with the 3PLs is important for that.
So talk to me a little bit about the cost for one of those boxes. Like say my apartment complex wants to invest in this. What would it take for them to get this drop off box on their property?
So we'll be opening it up to that later this year. And we'll be releasing our pricing. We have a few different tiers. You could either pay for the hardware flat out. You can cover the hardware and then have a monthly software costs for significantly cheaper. Or we have a zero money down where you can pay monthly, but it's a little bit higher than the other option.
Hopefully my apartment complex doesn't take that and start charging me as an extra amenity.
We hope not. We're trying to make it as cost effective as possible. When you start looking at the cost structures of current last mile logistics and you look at some of the data coming out now, the costs are about 20% of what a traditional delivery would cost. So while the hardware is part of that, we we believe the cost savings that are coming from those deliverers and from the different people that are stakeholders in this will offset a lot of that cost.
Makes sense. So you mentioned the whole idea behind, Uber Eats and why take a full car to deliver one thing, and you guys kind of want to make that your avenue. What other avenues do you see Valkyrie expanding into going into the future?
Right now we're looking at everything that's available under the current regulations. That includes maritime operations, so ship to shore and shore to ship. We're looking at military operations. We're looking at Gulf, which falls within the current regulations, as well as industrial and manufacturing, right? If you need a very specific part coming from one facility to get to another facility, drones are a perfect use case for that. So we're analyzing everything that's available under the current FAA regulations, working through those models, getting our lessons learned. So by the time it's delivering to your home, it's already completely foolproof.
This might be a bold question, but if you had to put a timeline on when you guys think y'all will be fully deployed, what would you think?
We're expecting somewhere in the 3 to 4 years. It's going to take about 18 to 24 months for the FAA to really make that next step for beyond visual line of sight. And that's when it's going to start really opening up. We expect a big influx around 2023. And then from there, we expect a pretty fast market adoption. I mean, if you look at the smartphone, right? It was a decade from the first iPhone to where smartphones outnumbered people in the world, right? So we expect a somewhat similar cost curve to kind of shape out with that and the adoption rates.
Are you guys planning for deployment as in like big cities first, or just kind of wherever the demand is, or just where it makes more sense regulations wise?
A little bit of both. So we're obviously analyzing the regulations, but we're also doing kind of the reverse of that. We're starting very rural, remote deliveries to very rural properties, or we're working with companies that are delivering to the First Nations tribes up in Canada. So the low risk, long range, remote type operations are much easier to get allowed currently, and we imagine it's going to come closer and closer to the city as the years go by. I would expect city operations to be a little bit longer than some of the other ones, though, just because of how complex the airspace and architecture and everything else is.
Makes sense. It's going to be a while before you're delivering individually to those high rises in like New York City, right?
Exactly. We're working on our window and balcony units now for those type of applications, but it's going to take some time for the regulations to catch up.
Well, I'm pretty excited to see where this goes and where you guys can take it in the near future and in that far future, too. Thanks for coming on today. We enjoyed having you, and we'll be keeping an eye out. If people want to learn more about Valkyrie, what you guys are doing or what you're doing, where can they go to connect with you?
You can go to any of our social media or our website, valqari.com, VALQARI.com. Thank you so much for having me. It's been an absolute honor.
Awesome. Thanks, Ryan.